All right, we're back. Good morning. Another week of this podcast, which is called Book Club with Kate and Kelly. I almost forgot for a second. Book Club with Kate and Kelly, where I read books with the intention to improve my health, my wealth, my wisdom, and my peace. And then I pass off the information here on this podcast for you to do the same thing. This is my main podcast, and I do a supplementary podcast, which is called Here's the Point with Kate and Kelly, where I do this podcast, but I do it in 15 minutes, and you can find that on Spotify and Apple Podcast, or you can find links to everything in my blog, kateandkellysblog.wordpress.com, where I write in a blog, and I also has links to my social that also has the 15-minute pod. But then, baby, we're here. We're going to do this one. This podcast is usually about an hour and a half. Today might be brief. Mashed Potatoes is in the chat right now because I'm live. I do this podcast live on Mondays. And he's in the chat saying 48 is a lot of laws. Yes, the book today, and we're going to get right into it. The book today is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. From the author. So, 48 is a lot of laws. And I'll tell you what, though, this podcast might not be super long because this is not, I don't know, I struggled with this one. I struggled with this book, and I'm struggling with the content for the podcast because if you've read this book before, and I don't know many of you that have, this is not like a novel. This is kind of like a reference guide. So Robert Greene has written this book as well as others, including The Art of Seduction. And let's see if I can find it. Well, you know what? I'm not doing I want to do my BS banter that I usually do at the beginning of each podcast. But I'm going to tell you about this book really fast. This one was published in 1998. Yeah. Looks like the first edition was published in 1998 by Robert Greene and published by Joost Elfers. And I think it's the first book where I've noticed that it was like a movie. There was the director and the writers for the movie, and then there were guys that produced the thing. They funded the project. So Joost Elfers was the producer, and Robert Greene was the writer. So however that works, it's not written like a novel. It's not written with a part 1, part 2, part 3. And I think I give that layout a lot of shit, but I think I really enjoy it because it's really easy to understand the principles. This book is 48 laws, and it's written with each there's 48 chapters, there's 48 laws. And the way that each law is broken down is there is the observance of the law. There is, hold on. Where is it? There's the observance to the law. There's transgression to the law. There are, and then a section called keys to power for each law and a reversal. So it's like how to adhere to the law, how to, how you transgress the law, how you apply it, like the keys to it, and then what's the opposite of the law. No, it's there's no laws when you're drinking claws. Hey Moon 2, my alt account. I didn't know you even had an alt account. We got a new follower. Thanks for I can't see your name because my screen is too small, but thanks for following. The book was interesting, but again, it's kind of hard to. I got another new follower. I can't see the name still. I got to make that bigger. I'm going to do that right now. Whoops. Let's see. Alert box. Yeah. There we go. E4 ULQUIORRA. Hi. I don't know how to spell your name. You're going to be famous soon. I'll be famous eventually, but I don't want to be famous. I just want to keep reading books. So anyway, the podcast was, or the book was, it's tough for me to, because also it's such an interesting concept to write. It's like a manual to how to gain power and influence. So, oh geez, there we go. Sorry, I'm fucking with my stream. So anyway, what I want to do is I'm going to read each law, all 48 laws. And I like what he did here in the table of contents. He has each law and then has like a summary, a 3 or 4 sentence summary. So there were a few that, well, first I'll say I didn't even read the whole book. I'll be totally honest. I just read the laws. I read the title and the summaries to the law. So I did read maybe the first quarter of the book, the first 10 laws, a fifth of the book. So each law is broken down into real life examples. So let me do this too first. I need to tell you who Robert Greene is, because I do that with all of my books and authors. Let's see if there's got to be something in here. Yeah, Robert Greene. Here we go. Robert Greene, the #1 New York Times best-selling author of The 48 Laws of Power, The 33 Strategies of War, The Art of Seduction, Mastery, and The Laws of Human Nature, is an internationally renowned expert on power strategies. He lives in L.A. Joost Elfers is the producer of the bestsellers The 48 Laws of Power, The 33 Strategies of War, and The Art of Seduction. He also produced Viking Studios bestselling The Secret Language of Birthdays and The Secret Language of Relationships, as well as Play With Your Food. He lives in New York City. So, they didn't write this together. Robert wrote it and Joost produced it. Anyway, so let me read you the here's what I did. Okay, this is a untraditional podcast book summary, because it doesn't really apply to the book didn't end up really applying to how to improve my health, my wealth, my wisdom, and my peace. It was this book was about how to gain power, or how to observe power, notice power, strategies, and power fluctuation. And I'm not interested in gaining tons of power, but I am interested in a few other things. So what I did was I read maybe the first fifth of the book, and then I just ended up reading the laws and their summary. And I took notes of the thoughts that I had in this book. So what I'm going to do, I want to read the description that's on the back of the book, go and talk about my notes from the introduction, and then the thoughts I had while I read it. I'm not going to go through the prince, and then if there's an interesting power law, I'll maybe stop and elaborate. But I anticipate this being a much shorter episode than normal. So let me read to you the summary on the back of the book, the description. The best-selling book for those who want power, watch power, or want to arm themselves against power. Amoral, cunning, ruthless, and instructive, this piercing work distills 3,000 years of history of power into 48 well-explicated laws. As attention-grabbing in its design as it is in its content, this bold volume outlines the laws of power in their unvarnished essence, synthesizing the philosophers of Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Karl von Clausewitz, and other great thinkers. I don't know if I said any of their names right. Some of the laws require prudence. Law 1, never outshine the master. Some, stealth. Law 3, conceal your intentions. And some, the total absence of mercy. Law 15, crush your enemy totally. But like it or not, all have applications in real-life situations, illustrated through their tactics of Queen Elizabeth I, Henry Kissinger, P.T. Barnum, and other famous figures who have wielded or been victimized by power. These laws will fascinate any reader interested in gaining, observing, or defending against ultimate control. Mashed potatoes, I always knew you wanted to be a dictator. No, you're the dictator. Total absence of mercy and crush your enemies totally. So this is what I'm saying. This book it's with like the panic emoji. It's an interesting read because a lot of the stories are of ancient warriors and ancient rulers and kings and generals and how they would treat their allies and how they treat their enemies. But then, he talks about P.T. Barnum, too, and how he manipulated his audience to gain his power, or not. He didn't even really gain power. He just gained influence and success through his... What was that movie that came out about P.T. Barnum? I forgot. The carnival one with Hugh Jackman. So, let me tell you about that's the description. It's a book about... This book will fascinate any reader interested in gaining, observing, or defending against ultimate control. So, and maybe not an obvious note, but something that repeatedly came to my mind was this is useful for anybody to understand power, to observe how people will use their influence over you. And if you don't remember the book called Influence by Cialdini, I believe, Robert Cialdini, people exploit our human nature and tendencies to gain whatever it is they want to gain. Some people do it with sales when they're making sales to people. Some people will do it for religious endeavors. Some people do it for just really for power to conquer nations in their marriages with their kids. We use our influence to gain power and control of people and of situations. Sometimes we do it subconsciously. Sometimes we do it intentionally. And let's see. The E4 UL Korea. Write in Google the greatest 100 man historically. You want me to Google search that? Okay, give me a second. In fact, actually, hey B Moon, if you're still listening, why don't you Google that and then tell me the top 10 greatest men historically. So we've talked about influence and how people use their influence to gain what they want. This book is it's the 48 laws to power, how to gain power over people, and especially how to observe it in other people. So I think it's useful for me because I'm not trying to gain power, but it's useful for me to observe how people use their influence to gain power. And honestly, the whole time I was reading the first 20% of the book, it just sounded like Game of Thrones, where there's the fucking Dragon Queen and everybody below them, and there's the Lannisters and there's the Starks and everybody below them who are supposedly insignificant characters use these tactics to gain power and influence for themselves, and usually bested their competitors when their competitors are not aware of these laws. But usually the best, the most successful people in power dynamics are aware of all of these laws. Low-key nervous, this book exposes me as the power monger I am. Okay, sorry, no more jokes. I'm listening. If it's a good joke, I want you to tell it. But I don't. If you, and I actually think you're using these tactics right now on me by pretending like you're not a power monger, and actually you are. So it sounds like this book is like it's a whole series on how to win Game of Thrones, basically, and there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe there is something wrong with it because it mostly comes down to your intentions. Yeah? What are your intentions as you try to gain power and influence over people? What is your ambition? What are you trying to achieve? So you can exploit people's weaknesses to gain power and control over them, so that to enslave a person. Or you can have good intentions and use your power and influence to improve the lives of other people, or for your family, or for yourself, more selfishly, but without exploiting or diminishing the quality of other people's lives. That's an interesting concept, and he doesn't really paint a moral picture for this. I guess the whole point of this, and that's why I'm saying like this book it's kind of a tough podcast for me. There's no moral structure to it. He's not arguing for or against power. He's just explaining this is what power is. These are the laws of power. So in that sense, it's interesting. And I read a few reviews when I bought the book of people. All the 1-star reviews are, this is completely immoral because why would anybody want to gain power over others? But I think the point, that's not the point. He's not making that case. He's saying this is how power is used. This is how you gain power. It's just what's the word? He's just explaining the concept of power. It's really thorough. It's a 600-page book. It's no joke. In fact, like I think I said last week, it has text outside the text, so like there's the main body in black. If you're watching the video podcast, you can see there's the black text, and then on to the side in the column, is this called the column? In the margin, there's red text, and usually the red text was quotes or another anecdote to the law that he's explaining. It's very thorough, and I think some laws are kind of contradictory, but I think the point is you got to understand your adversary to gain power and influence over them. So some people have big, bold characters, and according to the first law is to never outshine the master. If you're a courtier, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a word he uses. I think it's courtier, courtier, courtier. Then you don't want to appear more important or more influential than your master, because if your master has a big ego, they're going to take that as a threat and they're going to wipe you out. So there's the instance of I have to play dumb to my master to gain power over them. Or you see how this sounds just like fucking Game of Thrones? There's that. Or on the other hand, if your master is weak and nimble, then you want to crush them entirely, or you want to continue to manipulate them so you gain more power over them. It's not like one law is better than the other. It's like knowing when to apply which law in which situation. So, I think this was a note that I made, one of my key takeaways. I said people are naturally good at these skills or these laws, while others have to study and learn them. And then I said, what are your intentions? But the point is, some people are inherently adept at applying each law into the right situation, and some people suck at it. This is a manual, if you suck at it, to know when to do what. But again, I think that people who are like the actual egomaniacs or the power hungry people kind of they already understand these laws, or they've observed them, and it's like second nature to them. It's, I think people who struggle with influence or power, this is the manual for you. And then you just got to practice them to get better at them, to gain power over your adversary, or to gain power over your boss. There's lots of different application to it. It's not just about making people's life worse. If you're if you're an employee in an institution, and your boss is wielding power over you, and you can use your influence and your power. Again, this is like a combination of Cialdini's influence and Green's power laws. You can use your influence to gain power over your boss, to gain promotions, to get raises, whatever, without letting your intentions be known, or without, whatever. So let's go through the laws. Actually, first I said I was going to go through my notes from the introduction. So that's what I'm going to do first. So the preface. I said, it is far better to play the game of power than to whine and feel guilty. Quote, you spare others the pain that comes from bungling with power. Close quote. The most important skill is to master your emotions. Yeah, let's see. I said, to go along with that, power is amoral, not immoral. Power is amoral, meaning power has no morals. It's not inherently good or bad. And just because I looked it up, the definition to amoral is lacking a moral sense, unconcerned with the rightness or wrongness of something. Power is amoral. It is about seeing circumstances as they are, not as good or evil. So again, this is, and I think I like the power complements like our attitude on how we view things. If someone does something wrong and you want to have peace in your life, you don't look at circumstances as good or bad. You just look at them as circumstances, and you decide how to react because of them. If someone cuts you off while you're driving, you can react. You could be reactive and get pissed and speed up and cut them off or flip them off or whatever. Or you can experience the thing and you could get cut off or get flipped off and hold your composure, remain undeterred, observe the situation for what it is, and just fucking go about your day. That's how you don't get peace by cutting off the guy again or the gal, whatever. You get and hold peace by observing circumstances in your control, or observing what's out of your control and making appropriate decisions that's within your control. So that's kind of power too. Power is you observing the situation for what they are and then making appropriate decisions to gain power and influence. Quote, an understanding of people's hidden motives is the single greatest piece of knowledge you can have in acquiring power. Awesome. Yeah, that's it. Those are a simple premise to this book. Okay. Certain actions almost always increase one's power while others decrease it and even ruin us. So, do you want to be on the winning side of power and influence or the losing side? If you want to be on the winning side, listen to these laws and figure out how you can apply them in your circumstances, and also learn how also be equipped to recognize them when others are wielding these laws over you to gain power and influence over you. That way you can respond promptly and calculatedly, precisely, and win the war of power. Okay, let me get some water. Let's go over these. Let's go over these laws, baby. All right. I'm going to open the book. Okay. So, yeah, I'm just going to go through them. Just going to go through the laws. Tell me what you think. Law 1, never outshine the master. Law 2, never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Law 3, again, each law has a application to the law, how to observe the law, the transgression of the law, the keys to power, how to use this law for your advantage, and then the reverse. He calls it the reversal, but the opposite side of like when to use this law on. Anyway. Law 3, conceal your intentions. Law 4, always say less than necessary. Here's another note that I have. He even mentioned, I'm just remembering, in the preface, he mentions this book can be read as a novel from cover to cover to gain a knowledge of all the laws, or it probably should be used as a reference guide. So when you're being influenced or you're being taken advantage of, you can refer to these laws and learn where maybe you're slacking, where people are taking advantage of you, and to apply these laws so that you can adjust your position and gain power back. I don't know. So law 4, always say less than necessary. Law 5, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Law 6, court attention at all costs. Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Law 8, make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. 9, win through your actions, never through argument. 10, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. 11, learn to keep people dependent on you. 12, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. 13, when asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. 15, crush your enemy totally. 16, use absence to increase respect and honor. 17, keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. 19, know who you're dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. Sorry, brain freeze. 20, do not commit to anyone. 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. 22, use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. 23, concentrate your forces. 24, play the perfect courtier. 25, recreate yourself. 26, keep your hands clean. 27, play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. Rather, that should be read. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. 28, enter action with boldness. 29, plan all the way to the end. 30, make your accomplishments seem effortless. 31, control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. 32, play to people's fantasies. 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. And from what it sounds like, thumbscrews are a person's insecurities or weaknesses. 34, be royal in your fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. 35, master. See how it's more about application to appropriate situations. Be royal in your own fashion, compared to the first law, which is never outshine the master. So you got to just know when to do what to have the most power, to gain the most power. So 34, be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. 35, master the art of timing. 36. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. 37. Create compelling spectacles. 38. Think as you like, but behave like others. 39. Stir up waters to catch fish. 40. Despise the free lunch. 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others. 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect. I'll read this one because what's the mirror effect? The mirror reflects reality, but it is also the perfect tool for deception. When you mirror your enemies doing exactly as they do, they cannot figure out your strategy. The mirror effect mocks and humiliates them, making them overreact. By holding up a mirror to their psyches, you seduce them with the illusion that you share their values. By holding up a mirror to their actions, you teach them a lesson. Few can resist the power of the mirror effect. 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. 46. Never appear too perfect. 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. 48. Assume formlessness. By taking a shape, by having a visible plan, you open yourself to attack. Instead of taking a form for your enemy to grasp, keep yourself adaptable and on the move. Accept the fact that nothing is certain and no law is fixed. The best way to protect yourself is to be as fluid and formless as water. Never bet on stability or lasting order. Everything changes. That's it. Those are the 48 laws, baby. So, if all of that sounds sexy to you, I'd highly recommend you get a copy of this book yourself and begin studying the laws of power. The 48 laws of power. Some of my key takeaways, and I've already gone over one. My key takeaways were he's writing from the perspective of advising someone who wants power or wants to observe power. Why would anyone want to seek power? And I've already kind of talked about it, but we want power and influence to get what we want, basically. So what are your intentions? And are you trying to bring other people down so that you can bolster yourself up, or are you trying to improve a bad situation by taking charge? Or are you just trying to improve your life at the minimum, and your family's life, whatever? What are your intentions when you seek power? Part of understanding these power laws enables you to be aware of how other people may be using you to gain power for themselves, like politicians, ding, 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 peers, business partners, etc. Be aware, be vigilant. And if anything, this is another book, another example of why it's so important to live your life consciously, to be aware of your situation and your circumstances and the events that occur in your life. Because if you let life happen to you passively, then you'll never be able to make appropriate decisions. You'll never understand what's happening, what's in your control, and what's not in your control. You can't take control of a situation where you don't understand what's happening. So, and you can't sit back and let life happen when you believe that an uncontrollable event is under your control. So, I'll call you back in 5 seconds. 5 seconds. So that's it. That's the point of the book. That's all my notes. That's all the laws. Why would you want to gain power? What are you going to do to gain power? What are your intentions? This book kept popping up on my recommended books on Apple Books, and I couldn't ignore it. And it's so highly rated. It's a national bestseller. It's a really popular book, really well rated. Anyway, But yeah, it just didn't really fit into my niche, into what I'm studying, what I'm trying to improve in my life. It's good to be aware of these laws, especially when you are on the move. But it's, again, it's just not. How could you use the 48 laws of power to improve your health, wealth, wisdom, and peace? So I'm going to end it on that. Thanks for showing up. It was a short podcast today, and I'm not mad about it. It was a short podcast. We got to the point. I'm still going to do my here's the point. So if you want to listen to that recap, it'll be brief. That's here's the point with Caden Kelly. You can find links to all of my shit on my blog, cadenkellysblog.wordpress.com. And I have links to Twitch and YouTube and Facebook where I do it live. So if you want to join me on Mondays, I do it live sometime before noon, probably. It's not always. It's kind of fluctuated with work, but it is what it is. Once a week on Mondays, unless I say otherwise. You could join me there. Or I post it, I just post it live. Or I post it later on anyway. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for participating in a short podcast. We'll be, before I leave, I got to tell you, next week we're going to be talking about, we're going to read Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness, the quest for true belonging and the courage to stand alone. She has a larger library than I thought she did. She's got a lot of books, and this is, if you remember, the last one we did was all about vulnerability. So this is right at the same vein on vulnerability and courage. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next week. This week, if you're interested in gaining power, consider these 48 laws and consciously decide which one you can apply or improve on to make better, to have more influence. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Have a good one.